Your mother abandoned you because she didn't want you. Sarah's voice sliced through the living room, each word like a blade. My heart stopped. Standing frozen in the kitchen doorway, I watched as my sister-in-law crouched to my children's eye level, her expression carefully schooled into something resembling sympathy, but underneath, something dark lurked. Your real mom just left you at the hospital and never looked back, she continued, her voice dripping with false concern. You should be grateful Amanda took you in. I felt the mug slip from my fingers, ceramic shattering against the hardwood floor. 3 heads snapped toward me. Sarah's lips curled into a satisfied smirk before quickly smoothing into mock innocence. Oh, Amanda. I didn't see you there, she said, standing and adjusting the cuffs of her designer blouse. I just thought the kids deserved to know the truth. Secrets aren't healthy in a family, right? Sophie and Lucas stood rooted to the spot, their small faces twisted in confusion and pain. 8-year-old Sophie's lip trembled as she shook her head. But Mommy said. Mommy lied. Sarah's words were as sharp as knives, precise and deliberate. She's been lying to you from the beginning. I found the paperwork. Your real mother didn't want you. She walked away and never looked back. Lucas let out a small whimper and ran to me, gripping my legs tightly. Sophie didn't move. Tears slipped down her cheeks, her breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. Is it true, Mommy? She whispered. Did our real mom not want us? My throat tightened. The story of their adoption was one of love and sacrifice, not abandonment. Jessica, their birth mother, had made the hardest choice imaginable, not because she didn't love them, but because she loved them too much to let them suffer. I had always planned to tell them the full story when they were ready, not like this, not ripped open by someone who wanted to hurt them. I took a steadying breath. Go to your rooms, sweethearts. We'll talk in a little bit. Sophie hesitated, glancing between me and Sarah. But when I reached out, she finally turned, wiping her face with the sleeve of her shirt. I waited until they disappeared up the stairs before rounding on Sarah, my voice shaking with fury. How dare you? Sarah met my glare, unbothered. I'm just looking out for my niece and nephew. They deserve to know the truth. That wasn't the truth. That was cruelty. My hands curled into fists. You had no right to tell them anything about their adoption, let alone twist it into something so ugly. Sarah's perfectly painted lips curved into a smirk. I was just being honest. They'll never really be yours, Amanda. No matter how much you pretend. Something inside me cracked. Get out of my house. She laughed, a cold, amused sound. Or what? You'll tell Mark? She picked up her purse, slinging it over her shoulder. He always believes me. Blood is thicker than water. Or, in this case, thicker than adoption papers. I said nothing. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. She took a step toward the door, then paused, looking over her shoulder. Oh, and I took the liberty of telling Mom and Dad, too. They were just shocked to find out how you've been deceiving everyone all these years. The door clicked shut behind her. For a moment, I stood there, the silence ringing in my ears. Broken ceramic, spilled coffee, the ghost of my children's shattered trust. Then, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother-in-law. Family meeting tonight. We need to discuss your deception. Deception. As if love could be measured in blood. As if every scraped knee, every lullaby, every sleepless night spent holding them through fevers counted for nothing. Upstairs, muffled crying seeped through the walls. I forced my feet to move, one step at a time, until I reached Sophie's room. The door was slightly open. Inside, my children sat huddled together on the bed, their small shoulders shaking. Sophie lifted her tear-streaked face. Why didn't you tell us? She asked. Why did you lie? I sank onto the edge of the bed, opening my arms. For a moment, they hesitated. Then, slowly, they crawled into my embrace, curling against me like they had when they were babies. I never lied to you, I murmured, stroking Lucas's hair. Your story is beautiful and special. I was waiting until you were older to share all of it. What Aunt Sarah told you wasn't the truth. Lucas sniffled. But she said she saw papers. Papers don't tell the whole story, sweetheart. I kissed the top of his head. Your birth mother loved you very much. So much that she wanted to make sure you had the best life possible, even if it meant she couldn't be the one to give it to you. Sophie wiped at her eyes. Then why did she give us away? I opened my mouth to answer. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Mark. The bedroom door flew open, and my husband stood in the doorway, his face flushed with anger. Amanda, what the hell is this? Sarah told me you've been lying to my parents about the kids' adoption. Sophie and Lucas tensed. I forced my voice to stay calm. Mark, we need to talk about this privately. No, we need to talk about this now. Sarah said you made up some noble sacrifice story. Daddy? Sophie's voice wobbled. Is Mommy not our real mom? The hurt in her voice made something shift in Mark's expression. His gaze flicked to our children, really seeing them for the first time since stepping into the room. Their tear-streaked faces, their trembling hands. His anger wavered. He let out a slow breath. Kids, go play in Lucas's room for a bit. Mommy and I need to talk. After they left, I stood. You believed her. Mark hesitated. She found papers, Amanda. Papers she had no right to go through. What was she even doing in our attic? He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. She was helping Mom look for old photo albums. That's not the point. No, Mark. The point is that your sister just told our children they were unwanted, that their mother threw them away, and you're standing here, defending her instead of them. Silence. Mark swallowed. She said the documents prove. The documents don't prove anything except what she wants you to believe. You want the truth? Fine. Go to the attic. Behind the Christmas decorations, there's an old blue trunk. Open it. His brow furrowed. Amanda. Go, Mark. I turned, walking toward Lucas's room. I didn't need to see his reaction. I already knew what he would find. The letters. Dozens of them. Each one written by Jessica, year after year, asking about the children she had loved enough to let go. The attic was silent except for the rustling of old paper and the occasional shuffle of Mark's footsteps. I sat on the floor with Sophie and Lucas, holding them close, trying to steady my racing heart as we waited. He was seeing them now. The truth I had protected all these years. The letters. Dozens of them, carefully preserved in plastic sleeves, each one dated in Jessica's neat, looping handwriting. Their birth mother had never abandoned them. She had loved them enough to make the hardest choice imaginable. And now, finally, Mark was seeing it for himself. A loud thud echoed from above, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps on the attic stairs. Sophie flinched. Lucas buried his face in my shoulder. Then Mark appeared in the doorway, his face pale, his hands shaking as he clutched a stack of familiar envelopes. His mouth opened, but for a moment no words came out. Then, finally, Amanda, these letters. I nodded slowly. They're from Jessica, the woman your sister claims heartlessly abandoned her children. He swallowed hard, his gaze darting between me and the papers in his hands. Then he looked down at the one on top, his fingers tracing the delicate ink. His voice cracked as he began to read aloud. December 15th. Dear Sophie and Lucas, today was my ultrasound. I saw both of you for the first time, my beautiful twins. I wish things were different. I wish I could give you the life you deserve, but I know I can't. Not now, not with my illness. Choosing adoption is the hardest decision I've ever made, but it's the most loving thing I can do for you. Sophie scooted closer, peering at the paper. Can I see? Mark hesitated, looking at me as if seeking permission. I nodded. They deserved to know the truth. All of it. Carefully he pulled Sophie into his lap while Lucas pressed against his side. I reached for their small hands, squeezing gently. Your birth mother wrote you letters throughout her pregnancy, I explained softly. And she kept writing, even after you were born. Even after. Lucas lifted his head, his wide eyes searching mine. After what, Mommy? I took a steady breath. After she knew she wouldn't survive her illness. My voice wavered, but I forced myself to keep going. She wanted to make sure you always knew how much she loved you. That choosing adoption wasn't about leaving you. It was about giving you your best chance. Mark pulled out another letter, his voice thick with emotion. My dearest babies, I met your future parents today. Amanda and Mark. They're everything I prayed for. Amanda has so much love in her eyes when she looks at the ultrasound photos. I know in my heart she'll be the mother you deserve, the mother I wish I could be. Sophie let out a soft, hiccuping sob. But Aunt Sarah said. Mark's grip tightened protectively around her. Aunt Sarah was wrong. His voice was firm, unwavering. Very wrong. And she had no right to tell you otherwise. Heavy footsteps sounded on the stairs. Sharp. Quick. Sarah. She stormed into the room, her expression twisting in frustration when she saw what Mark held in his hands. Oh, how convenient, she sneered. Suddenly, there are letters that explain everything. Really, Amanda, how long did it take you to forge those? Mark shot up so fast that Sophie nearly tumbled from his lap. His entire body was rigid with fury. That's enough, Sarah. She let out a breathy laugh, incredulous. Mark, don't tell me you're falling for this. She's obviously. I said enough. His voice boomed through the room, shaking with a rare, barely contained rage. I recognized Jessica's handwriting. I was there when she wrote some of these letters. I watched her document her journey, her decision, her love for these children, our children. Sarah's smirk faltered. For the first time, real hesitation flickered across her face. Still, she grasped at straws. I found the hospital papers, they showed. They showed what you wanted them to show. I cut in, my voice steel. You found the admission papers from when Jessica was hospitalized. But did you even read past the first page? Did you see the diagnosis, the prognosis, the reason she chose adoption? Sarah opened her mouth, then closed it again. No, I said quietly, you didn't. Because you weren't looking for the truth. You just wanted to hurt us. To hurt my children. Mark took a slow, measured step toward her, his hand still gripping the stack of letters like a lifeline. Why, Sarah? His voice was hoarse. Why would you do this? Her face twisted, eyes burning with something bitter and ugly. Because she doesn't belong in this family. She burst out. She swoops in with her perfect little life, adopts these kids, acts like she's their real mother. I am their real mother, I said softly. Sarah flinched. I took a step forward, my voice unwavering. Just like Jessica wanted me to be, there's room in their lives for both of us, her memory and my love. But there isn't room for your poison. Sarah turned to Mark, her voice shifting to the same wheedling tone I had heard too many times before. Mark, you can't seriously. Get out. His words landed like a hammer. She blinked. What? Mark's expression was stone. Get out of our house. Don't come back until you're ready to apologize. To Amanda, to the kids, to Jessica's memory. But the family meeting tonight is canceled. His voice was ice. I'll talk to Mom and Dad myself. I'll show them these letters. I'll make them understand what you've done. Sarah stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing, fury and disbelief warring on her face. Then she spun on her heel and stormed out. Moments later, the front door slammed, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Silence settled. Then, can we read more of the letters? Sophie's voice was small, hesitant, but no longer filled with the same deep hurt. I sank onto the floor, opening my arms. Of course, sweetheart. Mark settled beside me, pulling Lucas close. I unfolded another letter, smoothing out the delicate pages, and began to read. Jessica's words filled the room, wrapping around us like a warm embrace, painting a story not of loss, but of love. Two mothers, bound by sacrifice and devotion. Mark's arm tightened around me. His voice was a whisper, just for me. I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I leaned into him, still reading. There was more to talk about: trust, loyalty, family. But for now, the only thing that mattered was this moment. And the truth finally shining through. 2 weeks after Sarah's attempt to unravel our family, I stood in the attic, carefully slipping Jessica's letters into a leather-bound album. Each page held a piece of the story our children deserved to know. One of love, sacrifice, and the truth that had nearly been stolen from them. Footsteps creaked behind me. Need any help? Mark's voice was soft, hesitant. I turned to see him climbing the last few attic steps, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Thanks, I murmured, accepting one. I took a sip, letting the warmth settle me. I thought it was time to make these more accessible. Sophie asked to read them again last night. Mark lowered himself onto the floor beside me, picking up one of the letters. He ran his fingers along the edges of the delicate paper, his expression unreadable. You know, he said, voice thick with memory, I'd almost forgotten some of these little details. Like how Jessica used to play classical music for them because she read it was good for brain development. I smiled. And how she craved spicy food through her whole pregnancy. Sophie definitely inherited that. Did you see her putting hot sauce on her scrambled eggs this morning? A soft chuckle escaped him, And for a moment, we sat in a stillness, surrounded by the weight of history and the comfort of healing. The past 2 weeks had been a reckoning. When Mark showed the letters to his parents, their horror at Sarah's actions had been immediate. The family meeting she'd had planned to expose me had, instead, become a painful confrontation about her own cruelty. Mark broke the silence first. Mom called earlier. He hesitated, tracing the worn edge of an envelope. Sarah's starting therapy next week. I stilled. Apparently, this wasn't just about us, he continued. She's been struggling with infertility for years. Mom thinks that's where some of her bitterness came from. Seeing us with Sophie and Lucas, a deep ache settled in my chest. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, Mark agreed, his voice firm. It doesn't. But it explains some of it. She and Tom have been trying for so long, and instead of asking for help, she lashed out. I exhaled slowly, absorbing that. She could have talked to us. I know, his hand found mine. But Sarah's never been good at vulnerability. She'd rather burn bridges than admit she's drowning. A small noise came from the attic stairs. We turned in unison. Sophie stood there, her stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms, her eyes flicking between us and the album. Hey, sweetheart, I said gently, opening my arms. She came over, curling up between us. She hesitated, fingers skimming the corner of a letter peeking from the album. Was my first mom pretty? I reached for my phone, the secret I had kept safe until now. See for yourself. I pulled up the only photo I had, a hospital room, Jessica bathed in soft light, her face glowing despite the sterile backdrop. One hand rested on her rounded belly, her eyes filled with a love that had transcended time, space, and even her own mortality. Sophie inhaled sharply. She looks like me. Mark nodded, his voice tender. You have her smile, and Lucas has her eyes. She traced the image as if memorizing it. Then, in a small, uncertain voice, is Aunt Sarah still mad at us? Mark and I exchanged a glance. She's not mad at you, I said carefully. She's dealing with some grown-up problems that made her say things that weren't true. But that wasn't your fault. Or mine. Or your first mom's. Sophie mulled that over. Will she say sorry? Mark sighed. I hope so, but even if she does, it's going to take time before she can visit again. We need to be sure she won't hurt you with more lies. Sophie nodded, her gaze returning to Jessica's face. Can we put this in a frame? Maybe next to our family picture? My throat tightened. Tears burned the edges of my vision. Of course, I whispered. Would you like to help me pick the perfect spot? That evening, we hung Jessica's photo in the living room. Lucas insisted on making a construction paper frame, decorated with bright yellow stars. First Mom loved looking at stars, he explained solemnly. I smiled, brushing his curls. She would have loved this, buddy. Later, as I tucked them into bed, Sophie rolled onto her side, watching me with wide, thoughtful eyes. Mommy, she whispered. Yes, love. Is it okay to love both my moms? Emotion swelled in my chest, too big, too full. I smoothed a hand over her hair, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Of course it is, baby. Love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Your first mom loved you so much that she made sure you have another mom to love you too. I brushed my thumb over her cheek. You have double the love, and that's a beautiful thing. The next morning, I slipped one final note into the back of the album. Dear Sophie and Lucas, your story is one of love, courage, and hope. Jessica gave you life and made the bravest choice a mother can make. I promise to honor her gift by loving you with all my heart every single day. You were never abandoned. You were chosen. Twice over, once by a mother who loved you enough to let you go, and again by a mother who loved you enough to bring you home. Love always, Mom. Sometimes, the hardest truths lead to the most beautiful endings. Sarah had tried to break us, but in doing so, she had only made us stronger. Because love, real love, doesn't shatter under pressure. It endures, it heals, it multiplies. And in the end, it leaves a legacy that no bitterness, no resentment, no lie can ever erase.